Hello and welcome to the Digitals and a Cruel World podcast, brought to you now by The Loop, place to go for all of your accounting tech news in the UK and beyond. I'm your host, Ryan Pearcy. I'm joined by the wonderful Leigh Stallard and Kevin Fitzgerald this week. Leigh, how are you feeling, mate?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm really enjoying the heat wave, actually. I think I'm probably in the minority with that, but yeah, I was born on the wrong continent, I'm sure. I absolutely love it when it's sunny. Just getting this, just an extra gear of energy. But we have invested in aircon begrudgingly on my part. So that's probably why I'm enjoying it so much, I think. But yeah, I'm good, thank you, Ryan. How are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad. I can't cope with 2 layers. I can see you've got a t-shirt and like a top over the top. That's already too hot for me. I'm sweating just looking at that. So yeah, I can't cope with the heat. What about yourself, Kevin? Have you got your aircon up now?
I don't, and I'm in the top of the house, which feels like a sauna at the moment, and I'm in Dublin. We're getting us good weather. But I should go on record to say, as an Irishman, I really want England to win.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, let's do it.
I've been enjoying it, and I'm kind of like, come on, you got it. This is the year.
And obviously, if you're listening to this, the final has happened. England may or may not have won anything or gone out atrociously before that. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I'm actually where I am at the moment. I am at the IPISIT offices down in Bournemouth and enjoying the sun outside, but also enjoying aircon. So that's the problem with being at home all the time. No aircon, sun beaming in. I get to enjoy some aircon and a brilliantly burnt orange room for anyone that's watching as well. But enough of that. We're here to talk about tech, and I think we've got some interesting stuff to debate today. Some interesting stats that are a little bit different to what I guess everyone else is shouting about as well. So Leigh, what do you think you're bringing to the table today?
So we've got some really interesting stories. Well, immediately jumping into AI, despite what you said there about maybe coming away from it. But Copilot doing some interesting stuff in Excel, which I think has got some interesting angles aside from AI. We've got an AI product called Puzzle that's now doing AI close. And we've got a couple of integrations in the practice management space as well, which is something I've mentioned in the last couple of episodes because I think a really interesting space that's hotting up and going to get very, very competitive. But we've also got some stuff coming up. I think one of your stories, Ryan, on my old employer, Satago. So hopefully I could shed some light on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I just think it's really interesting what Sage are doing in the space as well. They've really gone away from direct to market and powering others. And I think that's quite an interesting bit. But yeah, as well as that, some news on how I guess how AI is affecting employment and recruitment, which I think is keen to get Kevin's thoughts on that. Great that we've got you on for me jumping into that, Kevin. But what are you bringing to the table today?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. It's like I'm going to talk about Starling, and what we've seen them roll out, in terms of expense cards and team access, because I do think it's really interesting, and I think about the context of, I guess, the ability that sits in front of the banks right now, and maybe drawing on some of the older experience of when bank feeds started to become available and what the thinking was, especially from the banking side. We've also seen Pilot launch Meridian again around month-end close. This seems to be such a hot battleground, really, really hot. And I think it's very interesting to see. So it's obviously an important piece, but a key part of I guess a feeder for everything else, being a battleground. So probably something we didn't expect to see. We were 5 years ago kind of thinking about this. And then some more news from content, Snare's e-signature integration. So I'll be able to elaborate a bit more on that and what it actually means for people, where it's actually helping businesses.
This all sounds fascinating, and because of that, I want to find out all the detail now. So let's jump straight into app news. Who wants to kick off for this week?
I'll go with Starling. We obviously know Starling, a lot of the listeners would be really familiar with them. But they really look like they're on a trajectory where it's not just about making banking easier. It's pulling a lot of the small business finance workflow into the banking platform. And they've rolled out the ability for staff to have expense cards, spending spaces, it's called, real-time notifications, read-only access for bookkeepers and accountants. And it's trying to take away that messy work of, people sharing invoices, receipts on WhatsApp or email and having to chase down expense management material, which has been around for a long time, right? You think about Expensify, what are they, 12, 15 years old at this stage? But that move from being just a bank is, it's interesting to see it happen because they likely have the ability to go deeper into the accounting platform's workflow. And we've seen they've stepped into making tax digital. and surfacing tax information. So I think there'll be a tension there because we're obviously given accountants and bookkeepers read-only access, but I might feel like it's like, well, who's starting to own this piece of work now? And I think for accountants, like they got to sit back and say, well, what's the, not what is this move, but what could it mean like in the future? Like what about in a year's time? Like what's the capability? And when I read it, I was thinking about the early introduction of bank feeds. Like if you go back kind of 15 years, the banks were kind of like had to jump on it because the market demanded the access to the like customers' data. But really the banks, like from my old conversations with banks in Australia and Asia was, how do we get that information back? Like how do we actually really see the true picture so that then we can make better working capital decisions or business banking decisions? And I don't think that really happened like the way people were expecting it to. I find it really interesting and wonder what's next because it doesn't feel like a bank would just do expenses and then leave it.
No, they're definitely the banks are trying to land grab again, right? Because when, as you say, the bank fees came in, the accounting software kind of took their customers and then they just became, powering that. And it's really interesting to hear you say all of this, Kevin, because I think when Starling first announced they were going to do something like this, it was uproar. And a lot of the stuff you picked out is exactly what people were complaining about. And now, because there was no accountant access, now there's read only, but it still doesn't feel it's enough of a partnership, which, Starling really prided themselves on their accounting channel partnership. So it's a step in the right direction. And as they're growing this out, definitely, in my opinion, aimed at the Making Tax Digital group. But more and more banks are doing this. And I think that's the thing. It's not, if we go back a while, it was just Free Agent and NatWest, right, doing this kind of deep partnership. Now every bank seems to want to have accounting in their platform.
I think there's an interesting competitive angle to this as well, because by doing that, Starling have just eaten the lunch of Soldo, Pleo, Moss, potentially Expensify and apps like that as well. And so when there's a lot of talk at the moment about people's moats and how they can sort of defend their position against other apps encroaching. Well, one defensible moat that still exists is being a bank, right? It's not easy. Yeah. You can't vibe code a banking license. And so I think that gives people like Starling a really strong position to build from, because people can't retaliate and sort of build back to them. And I think that's a real threat for those guys, those sort of card solutions. But the other point on this I think is really interesting is that as agentic capability gets better and better, like I've built myself my own little operating system in Claude, the idea that I could just give it a little prepaid card with like 50 quid on it to go and just go and book me these tickets over here and go do that. But I can ring fence that money so it doesn't go completely wild.
Yeah.
I think that will become a more and more interesting concept over time. I think that will become, really, really a good use case for these products.
Are you struggling to attract the right talent? Are you needing to shift the busy work? Are you finding you don't have time to speak to clients? Trusted for over 20 years, the Advanced Track outsourcing model provides immediate access to accounting and tax experts who understand your local regulations and seamlessly integrate into your team. Digital transformation, robust security measures, top-tier talent, no recruitment fees, no wait time. Focus on what truly matters, growing and improving your business and positively impacting the lives of your clients. Be more than just number crunchers, be life changers.
So moving on from that bombshell, we've got something probably slightly more mundane with Microsoft is starting to build what it's calling skills rather than AI integrations into Excel. And there's a couple of interesting angles to this. Firstly, I think Claude have almost beaten them to the punch with this a little bit. I've heard people, I've never used it myself, but heard people raving about Claude in Excel and what you can do with that. And now Microsoft are up in their game in it. But what they're developing is these sort of set routines and skills. So rather than it being from what I understand, a probabilistic workflow inside Excel, you program certain routines and things in there. So it becomes a set skill that it then just goes through and automates, which seems really interesting. I think the challenge on that a lot of the time, though, is people don't always know their workflows and necessarily have them nailed down.
Definitely in accounting, yeah.
So, yeah. So, like, programming it is going to be, well, there's a step zero to this with some work that people have got to do to actually define this stuff first before they can make best use of this. But I think there's also an interesting angle around this, around the sort of death of Excel, which has been promised for decades. Like every decade, someone's promised to kill Excel. And I think people are now, he was actually in the quote in the article saying, well, look, people are never going to leave Excel. So let's build where they are, right? Let's build for them. And I think that's a really interesting lesson because it's so much easier to try and adapt around the customer's behavior and build where they're going to go anyway, rather than try and encourage them to do something else. It's very, very challenging to do that. So if you can build around what they already do, you're going to get much better adoption. Yeah. What do you guys use Excel? I'm like Google Workspace myself. I'm not really in Excel that much. Like, have you guys seen this stuff?
Did we use Excel?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So being an accountant for 20 or something years, yes, I use Excel. And I like the way you started with this is mundane. From my side, it's like, actually, as an accountant, this is kind of exciting. And you're exactly right that most firms adopted Copilot because it made sense. It was in their Microsoft suite, and they were like, they essentially promised it'd be deeply embedded into the likes of Excel, Word, etc. And every accountants, they go, oh, I like the Excel thing. I can automate all the horrible reconciliation stuff I don't want to do. But Claude did beat them to the punch, and they needed to step up. It does feel like they're also maybe emulating a little bit of what like Zero Force is doing, i.e. it's like that step change, build out the mechanics, and then script it and make it run, which is kind of what we want to do. And a lot of the time inside businesses, you still got this thing of, we can extract data, it goes into a spreadsheet, but then we need to do a whole load of manipulation to get it into the format we need. Well, sounds like that's exactly what this is going to be built for. So exciting times, but I have a feeling it's going to take a while for people to properly get used to making this work effectively.
I think what's interesting though is it's sort of breathing new life into an old concept, because the idea of automating things in Excel isn't new. Like Visual Basic's been around in there since the probably late 90s or whatever. I think it's just lowered the bar to accessibility for it. So I've always known it's there, but I've never known how to use it. I was like, I'll just do it. Yeah. But now you can just kind of give it a prompt and off it goes. So that idea that we can now kind of revisit some older things that have always been there is quite an interesting use of this, rather than just, hey, I'm going to build a bot that's going to close month end and do it all for me. You know?
Yeah, it's like, it's such a big play, because like if you think about Microsoft's strategy, it was very much like on the piping, on the socket, on the electricity. And for any tech company like that's trying to distribute a new product to the market, like it's difficult, right? Because people have to make a choice and they have to go through a process to choose a new vendor. But people already have Excel, and I'd say it's widespread usage, like for many different reasons. Like we remember the days at Xero thinking about, well, so many businesses were using it for accounting, and it just wasn't built for accounting. But so many still do use it, use it for accounting. So they've got the hook, I would say, like they got the user hooked in, and anything that can be added in terms of power and capability. I think this is pretty powerful for the user.
Definitely. And it's interesting you talk about, Microsoft owning the piping, because essentially that's what Sage is now trying to do with all accounting in every program, right? And as Leigh kind of teased at the intro, Sage are now partnered with Satago and are embedding their platform, their finance system, directly into the Satago platform. It's not exactly clear on the announcement what they're doing, but maybe Leigh, knowing Satago, so maybe knows a bit more than me, that'd be interesting. But I know it's being used to give the lenders access to real time financial data. But the Sage engine, which has always struggled, the cloud one always struggled to get traction in the marketplace because I guess of how it evolved and the frustrations that a lot of users had. But it's now been powering multiple platforms with Satago just being the most recent. I do wonder if, and that includes banks, right? We've talked about what Starling are doing, but the Sage are powering many other banks as well. I do wonder if in the end, it's just going to be everything powered by Sage.
I think it's what they'd like, isn't it?
Yeah. Xero powered by Sage.
Yeah. I don't know if you've got a view on this, Kev. I've got quite a few things to jump into, so I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think it's a clever move, right? You really respect Sage. They have a huge install base, and a huge customer base, right? Across the UK. So again, adding more value, for businesses to use, it's just a clever move. And it kind of, again, maybe it just comes back to this, join up of the accounting platforms and the financial services, and it's happening in different pockets, and you see different versions of it. And it just leaves me wondering, who's going to win? What are customers actually seeing, and where's the value for them? I think that's still out in the open. We're not sure just yet.
Yeah, definitely. So there's a couple of things for me to throw in here. I think one of the conversations that was being looked at in the early days was that you would be able to surface available invoices in Sage and then apply for invoice finance against them. So it's right there on your ledger, look at your debtors, where you like, again, back to that behavior thing, where you already are, right? And then it's just a simple step from that point on to the next thing. And it's a great partnership because Satago get in front of far more customers, which is great for them. Sage get to increase the ARPU as well, which is just going to be, I think, again, an increasing theme as you've got these platforms that can't really grow anymore. They're going to struggle to keep acquiring customers. The next question is, well, then how do you multiply the average revenue per customer? How do you get more and more and more out of them? Which is, I think, why we see so many people trying to move towards payment so they can clip the ticket on the interchange. And of course, there'll be some commercials in the back end for this. So Sage get a little bump in their revenue per customer. So great partnership from that perspective. But this really does underline something that I talk about a lot, which is why adoption is so important. If you get a product into the hands of a customer, and even if they're paying for it, but they only log in once every 6 months, or maybe they forget the subscription's there, it's not good for a number of reasons, but it's also not good because that then kneecaps you in terms of trying to grow that revenue later. Like if these people aren't logging into Sage to look at their invoices or track them and be in there regularly, they're never going to see this interaction and this option. So that's why getting customers actually engaged is so critical. But yeah, really interesting partnership, I think.
Yeah, and it's I think pieces like this, like it's not a workflow improvement, right? Like it's a new financial service. Like so, again, it can come down to like, well, hang on, who are we actually dealing with here? Like, and you know what's behind it? Like an invoice financing is not new, and certainly embedded invoice financing is not new. But there's clearly a market for it. I think it's how people interact with it, like, and what they see. But it is, I'm seeing it everywhere. Like I guess one is the pace of product development now at tech companies has definitely lifted because of AI in the engineering teams. But partnerships like this, I'm seeing more and more of them come up. Like, and it's really, I think it's businesses looking at the strategy and saying, how do we protect our moat?
Yeah, it's really challenging. And on that idea of protecting the moats, there's more erosions to it for a lot of people, particularly accountants, with Puzzle launching AI close. And so the idea here is that you, again, like we talked about with the Excel thing a second ago, you set up programs within Puzzle and say, right, for month end, I want you to do this, then this, then this, then this. So they're calling it programmatic accounting, which I'm not sure would pass Dave Selleck's deterministic test. But it's interesting that people are going hard at this. And also Puzzle, from what I've read, was initially going direct to end businesses. And now they're stepping back and saying, actually, we want to go with accountants as well. And I imagine that's because they found probably a fairly hard blocker with them doing the financial close for the client, and the accountants go, no, well, we're going to do it again. So that may have been a blocker to their growth there. But again, it comes back to that issue that how can you program something to do your workflow and your routine if you don't know it and you haven't defined it and got it consistent? Like you guys will both know, across a firm, you can have the same workflow running 3 or 4 different ways, depending on how many partners or organizations or teams you've got in there. And that actually itself is really causing a lot of pain for big firms. There's been a couple of high profile acquisitions that have not gone through recently because of standardization within the practice. They just couldn't tell it for the multiples that they wanted. So this idea of consistency is really, really challenging. And so, that looks like an interesting little add-on for firms, but I think there's sort of a step before that they've got to fix.
Yeah, from my end, we've started to see systems like Puzzle come in, and they call themselves AI-powered ledgers, right? So the next wave beyond Zero QuickBooks Online, and there's a few of them. And I think there's been the question of, well, why should I use you, or what's the differentiator? Like when cloud systems came over, it wasn't they were selling cloud; it's selling real-time interaction with your client. So what is the thing that they're selling? And I think the differentiator that I can tell is exactly what Puzzle are launching here. When you look at the likes of Zero QuickBooks Sage, they're going to have a wrapper of AI agents that are working, like interacting with the ledger, but it's still separate. It's still something that's kind of sitting on top. Whereas what the likes of Puzzle are doing is it's fully embedded. Everything is structured to work that way. And I think the accuracy and the speed and the reliability of those two options may be the differentiator of why people then move to that agentic ledger. It's hard to tell at this point because it's so early on and so many people are trying to define what period close looks like. But I think this will be the battleground. This will be what defines whether a firm or a client or a business or a group adopts AI ledgers, or whether it just is a hype for a while and no one ever actually transitions.
I was having a good chat with Dave Selleck at ZeroCon, and we got into a lot of stuff around this. And one of the points that came out is that just because we can automate stuff, do we want to? Like, it sounds quite abstract, but you remember the film Bruce Almighty, right? Yeah. Where you got Morgan Freeman as God, he's just sweeping the floor, right? And there's benefit in just doing the basic tasks and just working it through. Like, yes, for you understanding it and making sure it's right, but actually just going through the process and doing the basic things. And so sometimes I wonder, and this was a point that Dave raised, it really resonated with me, is like, do we want to automate this stuff? Like, actually, just because we can, should we? And then that started making me think this whole thing is like Jurassic Park in reverse. And Dave Selleck is like Ian Malcolm, just go like, this is going to go wrong. But yeah, a bit of a tangent there. But yeah, there's so much to this. It's like the Wild West, isn't it?
I love this. We're becoming like a film podcast now with Leigh on board. We're getting all of them referenced in. Well, I've got something, I guess, moving slightly away from period close, which is a topic I'm sure we're going to keep coming back to. Something as Kevin said, it is the hot area. It is the bit that the battleground, the moment where everyone's fighting about. But I've got something that's a lovely little problem solver for accountants. That's kind of something we hate doing, which is disclosure checklists. Like, we absolutely hate doing disclosure checklists. They are mundane, they're boring, and they're basically a giant tick box exercise. Literally a tick box exercise. Yes, no, not applicable, whatever. We're doing that up to like 600 questions, depending on the complexity of the account we're doing. Well, we've had an announcement from Inscope of an agentic disclosure checklist, which is a perfect use of AI in my opinion. It's something that is essentially taking away a mundane task no one wants to do and automating it and creating like risk matrix around it. So these are the things that I'm certain of you don't need to really look at. These are the things that I'm not so certain of because of the context that's going in the accounts. Please review it, which is essentially what the manager or partner would end up doing on a disclosure checklist anyway. So throw in new accounts. It essentially goes through and looks at what's in like the P&L balance sheet, some of the notes, and identifies them, what parts of the notes and how you're disclosing the notes. Are they meeting the requirements, or are there things that you need to tweak? The only negative I have of this is actually something that Indy would flag, is that they've named their AI agent for the disclosure checklist, and they've named it Penny, which is another very white name. We need more breadth in our naming of AI agents. We should all get behind this. So if you're listening, please come up with some more interesting names for AI agents. That's my feedback. But otherwise, I think it's a great problem solver. It's definitely when I know from back in my day, I'd spend 3, 10, 7 hours depending on the length of this, just box ticking, and that's a junior. And no, they don't get any value out of this. They never look at it and go, I have learned that this disclosure needs to happen. It's just the next time I have to check it again. So yeah, definitely something that's been well solved.
I think naming AI agents is becoming like such a it very trying to humanize.
Yeah,
like the agent seems to be the approach. Yeah, but I agree. I agree with you, Ryan. Like that is a great use of AI. Like laborious, slow, important but not value adding tasks. Like are just and I always worry that people, when they are given stuff like that they just switch off anyway.
Okay.
Like, and they're may not complete it properly is probably the way I'd kind of look at it, because it's such a pain in the backside. I'm going to take us back to AI close, because
we can't escape.
It is the hottest topic. So Pilot have launched what they're calling as Meridian. Pilot's angle is that Meridian is built from its own bookkeeping production work rather than a lab. But that raises the bar for scrutiny, like who checks the judgment calls, who owns the policy, what happens when clients' process is messy, and can a system explain a decision 6 months later, as to what exactly happened. So again, surprised that there's such a fight over this space, but it does make total sense. If I was betting on this, I could see the bigger players been in a position where they just absolutely have to own this and develop it and pour development resources in making sure like these businesses don't come in from the side. And I just question if some of these like AI close businesses will be around in a year or two, or will they just get bumped because the bigger players have said, actually, this is way too important to give up?
Yeah, I think there'll be a bit of an acquisition spree as well. I think where they've got a deeply embedded one, zero stage, etc., where it's harder to build, they'll just go and acquire and bolt it in, and it'll work effectively. I think there's some that are trying to build out that. I know Sage have said their shining light, their thing they aspire to is to eradicate period close. Whether they'll do that themselves or acquire, they're very well known for acquiring. But it's insane that we're talking about Puzzle and Pilot pretty much exactly at the same time, bring out a period close process. It is the hot area, and it's the thing that people want to do, which is not eradicate the accountant, but get rid of all the stuff that's the monotony and get back to actually, and I know it's a horrible word that people don't like saying, but advisory, having that engagement with our clients and giving back actual value to them.
Yeah. I don't know about the acquisition piece, because the speed of engineering, like it doesn't, I'll go out on a limb here and say it doesn't feel like the most complicated build. Like it's not bringing you into a new geography or a new space. Like, and it's kind of like, it's becoming like table stakes for the bigger platform.
You can't say it's not complicated when that's literally what accountants have been doing for like 50 years, Kevin. You'll get angry people after you.
Yeah, don't worry. Like I have a habit of saying that about what product can be built quickly. Yeah,
I do the same. It's like I look at someone, I'm like, surely you can bash this out in a day, and they're like, what are you on about? This is like 3 months worth of work.
One little piece of advice I'll throw in here for any firms considering these sorts of tools is please, for the love of all that is holy, if you're bringing AI tools to do basic mundane work that people are filling their weeks with, you have to communicate to them what you are going to get them to do instead. Because otherwise they're just going to sit there thinking, my job's being replaced, and they are going to be absolutely terrified. And what happens when that, not to get too far into the psychology of it, but their thinking is going to narrow, their lizard brain is going to fire, and then they're not going to start thinking laterally and creatively about how they could do a better job. They're just thinking, my time is short, I need to go and find something else. So like, it's really, really, really important to communicate before you start doing anything, why you're doing it, what your vision is for it, and what's not going to change. So it's like, we're not getting rid of you guys, we just want you to do more of this. Really important to get that done.
Yeah, very good message here.
One of the things that's come out from this article is the CEO of Pilot has said that 3 out of 4 accounting firms are turning away clients because they don't have the capacity to serve it, which is that's a shocking stat. And I think John too would probably argue quite heavily against that. But on that theme of acquiring clients, we see this week that Sodium and Socket have integrated now, which again, acquiring clients, always a massive sink on capacity, but connecting these tools together and getting your proposals to kick straight into your practice management tool is just a great way to smooth that process off, particularly when there's all the things in there like AML checks and none of that stuff that you get paid for. And so really seems like Socket have been working very hard on integrations, but also Sodium have like really come out of the gate swinging here. They only kind of launched the product into general release maybe a month or 2 ago. Yeah, really interesting. Have you guys heard much on this story at all?
Not specifically, but I'm not surprised by it in the fact that Socket are really included into integrating into the modern practice management systems. And I think there's no real justification now for firms not to be looking at cloud native practice management, which is, if we go back a couple of years, it's like, nothing's ready. They're not really built for it now. You've got some big firms, really big firms using the cloud native platforms. And when I kind of talk to them, what are you doing before that? Or what's a blocker? They're like, well, I've got 7 instances of CCH running on different servers because it can't handle more than a certain number of clients. So really, why don't you just move into the cloud and then you've got one flow? Let's kind of get into a modern tech stack and then build around, right? That's the number one thing we should do. But yeah, I would say that Sodium are flying at this point. They've had some great hires, built some really core technology. They are a disruptor.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Well, look, I've got something that's a bit different than what we talk about, and that's something that actually Kevin will know well because it's come from Employment Hero. And this is a bit of research that's carried out, which has been named the AI paradox. Now, for some context on this, so I'm going to throw a load of stats out, but I think the stats are only relevant based on how broad the question base is. So, starting point: 8,800 business leaders and employees across 4 markets were asked questions to deliver, I guess, the insights that come out of this. This is not a small survey. This is a big survey. But there's been some really interesting and I guess completely unpredicted, pretty sure that's not a word, but things that, that have come out that go against what everyone's saying. And the first bit is that those businesses that are AI focused, that are building AI workflows, that are using AI to power what they do, are hiring more people, not less. They are growing at a faster rate than those who are not AI. Now, I don't know if this is something where it's if you're AI powered, it's doing things, it's creating opportunity to hire people, or it's more if you're AI powered, you're forward thinking, you're doing more, you're growing, and therefore you need to hire people. I'm not sure what the exact outcome is, but if you are not using AI at all, then only 30% of businesses are kind of actively hiring. If you are AI core, your fundamental basis around AI, 62%. So that is a big swing. It's showing that growth. And I think that's going completely against that mantra in the marketplace that AI is taking jobs. AI is enabling jobs. Is that kind of, I know I've got low more stats, but is that the general feeling or I guess surprise, Kevin, that you got out of this? Because you must have seen this data.
Yeah, like we published it, and obviously it's all come together over the last few weeks, and it is interesting to see it, because I think the headline perception is AI is all about like productivity gains. And it's almost people tend to go to, oh, well, that means we can reduce headcount and take cost out of business. But I think the mindset is actually we can go harder here, and we've got more leverage, and we can grow faster, and we can have durable growth. So definitely a surprise to see that level across businesses that are, I guess, seeing tangible success to then say we need to hire more people, because that's always a decision to step through, right? And say, can we take on the fixed costs, et cetera, and could completely change like the shape of our business and org, especially if you're an SME, say going from 30 people to 40, right? Like that's like a big chunk. So positive to see it, definitely surprised by it, because I still feel we're in the infancy. But maybe just reading between the lines, I'm kind of going, actually, these businesses have figured out how to really maximize AI. They haven't just rolled it out and said, hey, guys, play with it and see what admin you can get rid of. Like they have to be actually uncovering material improvements and leverage in the business to then be in a position to say, let's hire more people.
Yeah, and I think you've summarized it, and I think the article states it, but AI is becoming clear. It's not about productivity, it's about opportunity. And using some things, so say you're delivering a piece of work for a client, but using AI that can either reduce the cost to deliver it, which means you can potentially still keep a good margin, reduce your cost against your competitors, which means you've got more opportunity to win work because you're pricing better, or delivering a better and more effective output in this, by the same amount of time you're doing it, which means it's a differentiator again. And if you can do that, and then you're delivering better and more, then surely you're going to do more against your competitors and therefore need to hire because you're growing. It kind of is that cycle, right? Where if you're using technology, et cetera, in the right way, then you are superpowering yourself. Another interesting stat that came out is that recruitment is now focusing on AI skills. And the more AI powered a business is, the more important it is. So I think, core things like work ethic, communication, digital skills, specialist skills in the area you are all critical and have been. And if you're a business, a general business now, AI skills as a requirement has crept up into another 6th in the list. But what's more interesting to me is that of those people that are seeing that, those that are applying for jobs, at least 25%, I think, I read this, are saying, I don't think I've got those skills. I am basically ruling myself out of the job because it's asking for stuff that I don't know or have, and I don't feel comfortable now putting myself forward. So we're now identifying another skill gap out there where business owners want AI skills. It's not in the school curriculum. There's no proper training out there. No one has this. You've either learned it or not. And if you're not someone that's bullish, you're basically going, I don't think I'm ready for this job, and therefore not applying. So it's creating a bigger challenge for those that are trying to seek work. But
yeah,
sorry, go Kevin.
I think that's really important, because, if you look at a job description and if it does say you need to be AI literate and capable, there isn't a huge cohort of talent that could probably be confident enough to say, I will apply for this job. And I'd kind of be saying to businesses maybe you should be saying, we use AI. We're still on our journey of learning it. We've seen wins. We'd like you to have the mindset where you're really willing to learn fast and pick up our AI tools, because I think that then opens up, hey, look, I really want to learn. I want to be with an employer that's going to teach me and encourage me and educate me, rather than you must have. Because I think that's a pretty unnatural gap that could be created in the market. So it'd be interesting to see hiring levels, because obviously we track them monthly, right? And see, have businesses started to find that time to hire is blown out, maybe because there's such a specific ask in there for AI capability.
I just got a quick thought on this. So if I'm looking at a job spec, right, and I see on there that I need an engineering degree, I immediately go, well, I haven't got one of those and I can't get one in the next 6 months. So it's not for me, right? If I look at a job spec and it says I need AI skills, well, I can literally learn that with AI. Like I can go to Claude and go, like, this job looks really good for me. Can you teach me some AI skills? And so I think what you're actually searching for with that line is someone just with the agency to go, I'll go and figure it out. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not, because there aren't qualifications for it. It's easy to find out how to use it. There's probably a bunch of scenarios I'm not thinking about and a load of people that can't do this that I'm completely overlooking. But it just feels like that's really solvable. You know, if you're looking for a job, just go and learn.
It is, but something else that came out of this was that depending on your age group, so if you're Gen Z, Gen Y, Gen X, etc., don't ask me what age groups those sit in, it's how much you expect someone else to teach you this compared to how much you go off and do it yourself. And the younger you you generally are going out and going, I need to self-train. I need to be the expert of this. It's my responsibility. Just like if you go and, you learn a course or you get a degree, you're going, I'm owning this. This is my skill. And I'm going to then use this as a differentiator to go and get work. The older you are, and I guess this kind of works, is you're so used to now being trained and learn things at work. And you're going, well, we need you to have this skill that you kind of expect that to be delivered. And so it's creating this bit of a divide that actually those younger people are now going, I've got these AI skills, I can differentiate, or going out and, as you say, Leigh, going, oh, it's asked for this, I'm going to go and teach myself, and now I've got it, and now I'm ready. Whereas other people are more like, oh, I've not had this, I don't know where to get it from, I just, this isn't for me.
But the name of that skill is not AI. The name of that skill is agency, right? That's just initiative and agency to go, I'll go and figure it out. And I get it. There'll be older people that don't think that way, but that's going to be the skill that gets rewarded.
It came up on our last recording, Ryan, right? Like and specifically with the accounting industry and AI tools. And I was quite probably bold to say, like, what are you waiting for? Because it's like, well, it is like, I came up in an age where education was delivered to you. Now it's like, okay, open Claude or ChatGPT and then ask it to teach you. Like it's like it does work that way. Or ask it to ask you questions, right? Like, how can I learn more skills? And it's that like perpetual desire to learn. Like, it's just like, I think probably one of the biggest skills that like top performers have.
Yeah, but I think there's that fear, right? And another thing that came out of this is that the more you know about the AI, the more you think it's going to empower you and also take your job. It seems to be the more you kind of bury your head in the sand, or you just haven't opened your bit or had your eyes open to all the stuff AI can do, the less worried you are, but also the less that you feel you could use it. And the more you use it, the more you're like, oh, great, I can do more. But also it can, where it's going and what it can do already, it's kind of replace me. And so you've got this increase of fear and opportunity growing in people the more they use it, which is, as I guess the article says, a paradox, right? It's confusing. And that's what we're in. We're in a really confusing time at the moment. But the final bit, and what I wanted to touch on, is that essentially it comes down, as you said, Leigh, to the person. The use of AI and how good AI is, and the skill set that person's delivering is purely down to how good the person is in general at kind of digital skills. The ability to understand and use AI will be how good AI is rolled out by that person, which is kind of sensible, right? It's kind of in anything. If you're good at something, then it's going to be most effective. But the hardest thing that I find is, how do you vet any of this as a employer? How do you ask the question or find out? It's like, go, well, that person, as you say, has got a degree in engineering. Great. They've been validated. They are good. They have passed this. You can play with Claude. Great. How good are you at Claude? Like, how do you vet that? Like, the tests now?
Yeah. Well, if you send them a case study and they just whack it through Claude and send it back 10 minutes later.
Yeah, we have an answer.
So there is a genuine point to that, or answer to that. So I was really lucky. So shout out to Stephen Edgington at Dex, right, brilliant guy. My lad's 16 and he doesn't know what he wants to do. And Stephen gave up like an hour of his time and sat with him, and because he's sort of interested in coding, and talked him through it. And we were talking about the qualifications needed to be a developer. And he said, well, you can kind of go to uni and get a degree if you want to, or you can just build stuff and put it on GitHub and then share it. So for anyone who doesn't know, GitHub is just where you build some coding projects, you can share them online, and you can just build a portfolio and show people what you've built. And then employers might look at that and go, actually, you built some cool stuff. Like, yeah, okay, we can sort of see the skills. So I just ask them to show you what they've built. Like, what have you made? And you're tested for curiosity, not the skill. What sort of things have you made and built for yourself that help you or help other people? And like, just show me the curiosity and the keenness to build, and we'll figure the rest out, I would say. But maybe that's rose-tinted glasses. I don't know.
No, I think it's good. I don't think HR teams are built for doing that, Leigh. I'll be honest. I think this is going to be a change in work. But
well, all the time they save from reading CVs, because we know they're putting them through AI. They can use that time to spend longer on interviews, right?
Good point. As if they've not been replaced by, because we don't need teams anymore. AI is doing everything. But like we could talk about this for hours, right? This is an incredibly interesting article, and if you've not had the chance to actually read it, do check out the AI Paradox by Employment Hero, because I got fascinated, as you can probably tell by how much I've dived into it. But let's move on. Has anyone got anything else?
I do, and maybe a short one, but Content Snare is linked up with FuseSign and Annature, which means firms can now trigger document signing the moment a client request is fulfilled. And, there's probably a lot of firms out there that are saying, right, we got to get to the next stage, get everything signed. There's information in inboxes, formal sign-off has lived in 2 different places, trying to check portals to make sure you bring it all together and have it in the right place. And really, this is about accountability, but also like mitigating any liability, obviously with the engagement with the client. So we know electronic signatures aren't sexy, but they tend to be the bedrock of kind of any disagreements, right? Like, and making sure that you're set up well with the engagement. But the modern standard has to be like that captured, validated, signed and secured process. So I think what this will mean is probably just a copper fastening of processes that are already working to a certain level, but really bringing it together and saying, hey, like, this is actually how you nail it and make sure you're covered. So good release. What do you think, Ryan? Do you think the firm that you work will go for something like this?
I mean, it makes sense, right? With Content Snare, which is document exchange, having embedded document signing is just sensible. And I think I've got to admit, I guess I just assumed it was kind of all there already. So yeah, definitely to come. The bit that I still find baffling is when I now receive things and they say I have to sign a piece of paper. I have to print something and sign it and return it. And all I go back to them is go, can I please just put it through my digital document signing platform, which is FuseSign, because I can't bear it. I don't have a printer. The hassle, I don't have a printer. I don't have an office. What do I do? Go to a library? I can't resolve this. And the other day I was at a hotel. I had to go down to the hotel and then print something just to handle it for the next day. It's nuts. If you asking for wet signatures, apart from, I guess, in certain legal things that we can't get away from at the moment, for the love of all that is holy, please get a digital.
I'd say the reception. I'd say the concierge, that guy said he worked in tech.
Yeah, I know. It's so bad. It's so bad. All right, I'll get off my pedestal, and I'll bring the last thing to us today, which is actually a huge release from Joiin, which is the reporting consolidation tool. They've basically called it 6 releases, but inside those releases there's multiple releases. So I'll try and run through these quickly because there's a lot going on. So firstly, they've released new connections. Instead of just connecting into the likes of Xero and QuickBooks Online, bringing financial data, you can now connect into things such as Stripe. Now, why would I care about bringing transactions from Stripe when I've got the financial elements that come from Stripe and Finance? Because there's a lot more context around what's in Stripe. So it's bringing in all that non-financial information as well. And whereas generally you just have a financial transaction that sits in Xero QuickBooks Online. So Stripe's just the first of many things. My understanding is they're going to look at information such as CRM, or where you've got, I guess, a deeper contextual level so that you can get those insights inside your reporting tool. But if you're getting that, it's only as powerful as the information you get out of it or how you can manipulate that data. So Joiin has now released Joiin Intelligence, which are agents that sit within the platform. Now, this isn't new. In fact, you've got lots of agents now being built out in platforms. But what they're trying to do is create a framework around this, which I think actually is what the likes of Puzzle and Pilot should, if they're not doing, be adopting, which is act, the agent does something for you. Verify if it's unsure of something, make sure that it's being validated by a human in the loop, but then roll back. Make it really easy to reverse this if they've gone and done an action, so that it's not just going rogue. As I came across the other day, where an AI agent had deleted multiple years worth of data. It's I know it's crazy, right? It's not got that extreme. You've got the ability to recover. So at the moment, those AI agents could do, which makes sense for what Joiin is, elimination, consolidation, great, and chart accounts, kind of mapping and realignment, and also tidy up, which is another key thing you need in a reporting tool. But you've got the ability to draft board reports, so talk through what you want, and it will take the various elements and create the reporting pack, which is always a massive pain when trying to build out your first reporting packs inside these modern tools. Something that we charge clients for. So now, obviously, if you're a Joiin user, you can just do yourself. So there goes my income stream. But you've got the ability to also look at your history, look at what you've done for other clients, and not copy them, but take that and re-engineer across other clients. They've got AI and chat. I'm not going to go down that route because I think that's kind of what everyone does now. But a big one for reporting tools is you can drill down to individual transactions in Joiin. These are some where a lot of the reporting tools don't do, like Fathom, etc., where you can get just the month balances. You can get down to individual transactions in Joiin now, and identify inside your reporting tool why things are happening. They've got custom layouts and formats, which I guess is something I would expect, and they're just building a bit more customization around that. And then dashboards. The ability to take your widgets and build them into a live dashboard. So no longer you're just looking in the past and you're looking in the future, which is Joiin all about. You've got real time. So really trying to focus everyone inside the one platform for anything that is insights and intelligence for your business. There is a lot more detail. So I would advise, if you are looking at reporting tools, to dive into this release, because this is a huge leap forward in functionality for Joiin, and why I wanted to make sure I covered it. I mean, I'm scrolling through their release deck at the moment, and I think I'm halfway through. Just touched on the main releases. There is an insane amount in there. But the final bit I want to touch on is they've also released a accounting partner network. So you can become an affiliate, a reseller, or just a referral partner, and there's the ability to sign up directly with Joiin. So if you are looking for a modern financial reporting tool, I would definitely consider Joiin. They were very focused purely on the consolidation historically, hence Joiin. They built out phenomenally over the last year or so, and they now cover huge amounts of reporting historically, in the future, and real time with dashboards.
Nice. It's a lot of stuff. Two things jump out from me from this, not product wise, but just how they've released this. Firstly, love the fact that they've done this as a nice deck, and the link will be in the show notes for anyone that wants to look at it. So a lot of product vendors don't spend enough time. I mean, they spend a lot of time building this stuff, but then they just don't demonstrate it in a nice way. It's just a really beautiful deck. The partner program that you just mentioned looks great because they've got an affiliate level there. I think a lot of accountants are fed up with joining partner programs, and then they've got an account manager and they've got obligations. Just give me a link I can share with my clients, and if it kicks off, great, then let's talk about partnering differently. I think, not to pick on Joiin though, one thing that I think everybody in this space could do better is with these releases, rather than talking about what the product can now do, people should talk about what the customer can now do. Because of this feature, here's what you can now do in your workflow. Here's something new that you can achieve. And giving those example use cases is going to help people actually use this stuff. Because there's a reason they built it, right? There must be, usually they have the customer stories at the beginning, I'm this customer, I want to do that because of this. Show that in here, right? What are you enabling people to do with this stuff? I would just say to take this to the next level, but yeah, great releases.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't know much about them before. I was just scanning it. Big release, right? And very, very hot space as well. Obviously, know that seen the Mayday team grow over the last few years, in that business. So really, really vital. It's going to be interesting with this because I haven't had a lot of time to dive into, say, Zero Ultra, and the new kind of plans that are out there. But it feels like this is also as much as month-end close, feels like consolidation, multi-entity reporting and elimination is going to be another really hot space. And I think someone posted the other day around the development of the platforms, will they start to really step into the ecosystem that's very much supported them over the years? And it's always been a tension point, that's just the reality of it. But the speed of product development is very different than what it was 5 and 10 years ago, and that tension can become quite dramatic, I'd say, pretty quickly. So yeah, be watching these guys closely. Looks good.
Yeah, what a way to wrap up, right? With the tension in the ecosystem. I think that is a good summary of what we're going to see over the coming years. All right, well, I think that is a brilliant way to wrap up this week's Digitals in the Cruel World podcast. Many thanks to Leigh, Stallard and Karen Fitzgerald for joining us. And I think it was a bumper news this week. Trying to cram all of that into one podcast has been a challenge. Hopefully you've stayed with us and absorbed it all. We love talking about it. I hope you love listening to it. If you don't follow The Loop on LinkedIn, please do so. We release little snippets of the discussion points throughout the week, and you can see our lovely faces as well as listen to us in your ears. Keep your eyes and ears out for the Disruptor Awards that are coming in September, as well as, I don't know, releases announcements we seem to be doing every fortnight at the moment about acquisitions, partnerships, and just more and more that we're trying to help shape, evolve in a incredibly confusing period for accountants in the UK and beyond. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks, Kevin and Leigh, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.